The views expressed on the Nova Society are those of the panelists and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Phoenix Research Institute or any institution which any panel member is associated. Welcome back to the Nova Society, a space where dialogue deepens understanding and civic responsibility comes to life. I'm Dr. Mark Bound, joined by our regular panel, Dr. Scott Gershwer and Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon. Together, we'll unpack the stories that matter most, exploring the headlines, the history, and the big ideas shaping today's conversations. Let's dive in and hear what the panel has for us today. All right, Brooke, what do you got?
Well, today we have a number of very important questions from an important email from Michael from El Paso in Texas. And Michael writes, I would like for your group to discuss this urgent matter that may save the lives of these immigrants in these detention centers. I have just begun listening to your podcasts, and I admire your perspectives and straightforwardness, which many people avoid for the sake of saving face. Thank you, Michael. We're not at all concerned about saving face. Anyway,
no face to save.
Exactly. That is correct. That's why you never see what we look like. Your podcast makes me realize I am not alone in holding similar views on the state of our nation. Now, I have a document prepared by the American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU, and other activist organizations, which states multiple reasons why the Fort Bliss immigration camp in East Montana should be shut down and thoroughly investigated. File describes physical, mental, and sexual abuse, as well as neglect of the immigrants' basic needs. I pray that the situation improves and that the other people in my town become aware that these individuals would not lie about such matters and that there are at least 7 testimonies from those in custody. Perhaps you guys can come up with a topic surrounding ICE and their lack of government supervision and overall ignorance on their part. And yes, thank you, Michael. And I have a recording that I will share the link to from France, a news report on the number of detention centers in the United States, and that these are being built faster than to accommodate the huge swelling of people who are being detained. And it has video of individuals as well being chased down by ICE, including a U.S. citizen who was chased until she got into her own home by, you see the ICE guy running after her while she's shouting, "Leave me alone." But apparently the plumbing and other needed facilities are not even put in yet because people are being caught at such an incredibly high rate, are being put into these detention centers, and the video mentions how many detention centers are at present in the United States, which is good information. So this comes from France. So I will send you that link, Mark, and we can put that in the description notes for our viewers. So thank you, Michael. So Mark, Scott.
Yeah, this was actually, thank you, Michael. It's always nice when we get an email and they direct us to something. I mean, there's just so many articles and so many reports out there. I was not aware of this ACLU report until you gave it. And so I handed it out to the panel to get their take onto it. And, I'd say this to all the listeners. If you have a document from a legitimate source like the American Civil Liberties Union, please forward it on to us, and it gives us something so that we know that we're talking apples and apples here. This was a very disturbing report that came out of them, the ACLU. And, when I first started reading it, I thought, well, it's just going to be another one of those dry ACLU kind of reports. And as you read into it, you really get a sense of just how screwed up this detention of these people really is. And as Scott has said many times, they go after the low-hanging fruit. These people are not. They're not the terrorists or the criminals that everybody seems to make them out to be. That's just a narrative. And I think it's probably about time that we stop enabling this narrative about these people. I was watching the news the other day. I was actually watching a hearing. The question was asked of Christine Ohm, how many veterans have you deported? We have deported none, she reported. And gotta love people in Congress. Sometimes when they're prepared. And they had this person who had been deported to Korea, and he was a war veteran with a Purple Heart. So totally takes that narrative and turns it on its head, because here he is. You could look it up, and the congressman said, "Hey, can you look into this?" "Oh yes, I'll make sure I look into this." But as Scott says, they can't shoot straight.
I would have liked, well, and Christine Ohms said, I saw that also, and she said, he said, will you join me in thanking him for his service? And she sort of mumbled, well, thank you for your service, as though it were this.
Well, she made it very general. She said, yeah, I appreciate everybody that has served, and it wasn't yeah.
I thought she kind of mumbled, "Well, thank you, for your," she wasn't. Prior to that, she had been very, of course I thank everyone, but then she kind of mumbled, "Well, thank you for your service." But what I would have liked to have heard from the congressman was not just a general, will you promise or at least say that, or commit to looking into this, and I'll certainly look into that, because you can't trust anything she said. She just proved she was a liar. I would have liked to have known when you're going to do it, and you're going to get back to me after you've done it. And I want to see your verification that you've done it and what your final decision is.
Right, but usually all that stuff comes in the post-hearing email that gets sent to all these people. So Christine probably has a whole bunch of post-hearing emails that she has to address, and she is required to address them because they are from members of an oversight committee. So I'm sure that congressman, let's face it, he asked that question about will you thank her for the service, basically get that soundbite. Just to have her do the little bit of mumbling and all that stuff. Good politics there. But I can guarantee you directly after that, in fact, there was probably a couple of aides right behind him that were probably sending the email before the hearing was even over. What do you got, Scott?
Well, I want to thank Michael from El Paso for this. I had not seen this ACLU letter. I have it now. I have the report. And it's pretty shocking. And I think what we have here is a Milgram experiment made flesh. I mean, they have dehumanized immigrants to the point where there's some shocking violence and sexual violence being used. And this is not good for America. I mean, I'll just give you an example, just real quick from one of the pages of this. It's the 6th page of 19 in this letter. That officers at Fort Bliss beat Samuel, in quotes, it's not his real name, a detained teenager, so severely that he sustained injuries across his body, lost consciousness, and had to be taken to a hospital in an ambulance. They piled onto him, body slammed him, and began to beat him after he switched off an overhead light in the housing unit. The officers positioned their bodies to block the view of the security camera in the unit. Samuel's right front tooth broke from the force of being slammed to the ground, and as Samuel attests, one officer grabbed my testicles and firmly crushed them while another forced his fingers deep into my eyes. Samuel also recalls that officers pulled my fingers back very painfully, almost to the point where it felt my fingers might break, after cuffing him, punching him around the mouth, and then with cuffs on, continued to punch him. When the beating finally stopped, he was dizzy and fighting to remain conscious. One of the officers laughed at him for having a chipped tooth after being slammed to the ground and told him he was like a little girl. The injuries were so severe that he lost consciousness, and when he regained it, he was in an ambulance on the way to the hospital. A month and a half after the beating, the damage to his left ear is so severe he has trouble hearing, and he continues to feel pain in his testicles. This is shocking, disgusting, horrible stuff. And, we should post this ACLU document on the website.
Yes, we will.
And we should get that list from Brooks Broadcast from France. And people out there, you've got to contact your congressperson and say, you need to go visit this place. You need to go there and see it for yourself. every single member of Congress from now until I don't know when this all ends needs to make regular tours of these facilities and talk to the people who are inside. And the only way that they're going to do that is if people start calling them and writing them letters and saying, you need to go see this for yourself. You're my representative. I can't go to every single one of these places, but Congress can fan out and visit these detention centers and see what's going on in them. And this is just beyond. Those of you who don't know the Milgram experiments, it was an experiment where a subject thought that he was helping out a doctor by seeing what the effect of pain was on people's ability to answer questions. And there was a confederate of the doctor pretending to be hooked up to electrodes. And when he got an answer wrong, they would tell the subject to press a button that would deliver an electric shock. And people, person after person, delivered these electric shocks, even when they had turned up the level of the electricity to the point where it was actually dangerous. And the experiment was meant to show that people are willing to do horrible things to one another if somebody else takes responsibility for it. And in this case, ICE or Border Patrol is taking responsibility, and these people who are manning these facilities, who are the guards, are committing atrocities knowing that they can get away with it. And because they have so dehumanized these immigrants that they don't even see them as human beings anymore. And this is some real Nazi stuff, and we need to do something about it. And if there was something else that somebody can think of other than lighting a fire underneath the members of Congress and getting them to go visit these places and see them for themselves and file reports regularly and stop these atrocities from happening. This is just, this is really just the most disgusting thing I've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
Assuming that the Congress people can get in. I think this was where, I don't know, Mark, because this is where the wasn't it the mayor of Newark, New Jersey, and at least one congresswoman, they were arrested because they tried to get in to see what was purported to be a federal facility where people were being held, and then they were told, oh, you accosted an ICE officer or something, because these facilities are they're being run by private companies or something. So they allege then that they don't have to allow, it's not really a federal facility, even though it kind of is. People are in federal custody, but it's run by, it's not really federal property, so they don't have to let the Congress people in. It's some kind of sleight of hand, song and dance, and they refused to allow them in, and then actually arrested. I can't remember the mayor of Newark, New Jersey's name, but they actually arrested him. And yeah. I think they're aren't they still targeting, is it Monica, her first name, the congresswoman? Of course, both these individuals are black. And they said that she's 80, or they pushed another congresswoman who's 80, and they said she accosted an ICE agent, which is absolute nonsense. I mean, and there was a lot of pushing and shoving, and she got pushed herself.
Yeah. I do remember that, but here's the thing, Brooke. Let's let our members of Congress sort that out, and push them to go visit the Fort Bliss.
Oh, I agree. I agree. I just hope they can get in.
It is a Department of Defense facility that was actually built as an internment camp for Japanese during World War II. So it's got a long history. It's known. And it's definitely a part of the federal government. So pushing people to do the right thing. And this, as you point out, I mean, both of you and I remember this story about New Jersey, and we've seen other ones in Lower Manhattan, and we've certainly seen them in LA, where members of Congress are getting shoved around, or city council people are getting pushed around. That's a story in itself, and generating good trouble sometimes does lead to a little bit of pushback on the part of the people who's getting the good trouble sicked on them. But we need to do this. And everybody should get active on this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that was New Jersey Representative LaMonica McIver.
Yes.
Yes. And she was they were originally going to try to arrest, and they were arresting the Newark, New Jersey mayor, but they've dropped those charges, but they kept the charges against the congresswoman active because they said that she was interfering with law enforcement. And the idea of getting in, Brooke, I don't think is the issue. I think the issue is, okay, you can get in, but what do you get shown?
Yeah, you need free access.
You need free access, and that could be very, very difficult to get. And you're right, Scott. This is a little bit of Nazi stuff, but I always go back to World War II, the Japanese prison camps that they had over in China, and they had in the areas that they had taken. It's a brutal thing, and first of all, you've got to be a sick person to think that this is, that this is all right, and to want to even be engaged into it. And I understand the experiment you're talking about, but this goes way beyond. It goes beyond that, because you've got to be a sadist. Mm-hmm. to want to do this. You've got to have some sadism to them. And yes, we will post the report on the website. I'm going to tell you right now, it's a tough one to read.
Yes, it is.
The three of us have all studied conflict around the world, and I'm going to tell you right now, this is a tough one to read. It is not for the faint of heart. So make sure that when you do read this, be prepared to hear some really horrific. And it's being done. I think what makes it even more horrific is it's being done by us.
Yes, and it's being done now.
Right.
In our time, not back in the 1940s or whenever.
It's so easy for us to, demonize the Nazis, which they deserve being demonized for. But there's a bit of a disconnect there, because that was them. Same thing with the way the Japanese treated their prisoners during World War II. Easy for us to. Same thing. This is kind of almost to the level of Andersonville during the Civil War.
I was thinking about that.
Americans basically holding Americans.
Yes.
This really more hits home. It did for me. And the first thing I thought of was Andersonville.
Yep.
And how many Union soldiers died because of maltreatment. And in a lot of ways, Andersonville was mostly because they didn't have the supplies. They didn't have the infrastructure to be able to take care of the prisoners the way they were supposed to. So people died of exposure. They died of hunger. They died of all sorts of diseases.
Yes.
This is a conscious action taken by supposedly law enforcement officials in the United States.
Yep.
Against people who have not been tried.
Yeah,
no
exactly.
Trial, no nothing.
Exactly.
No, so I think this is the thing. When you really read about it, when you read this article, really do think about, what the United States, as far as the judicial system, how would you want to be treated? Exactly. How do you expect to be treated? Remember, if you're arrested, you expect your phone call. You expect when you ask for a lawyer that you're going to see a lawyer. You expect to be put up before a magistrate so that you can be arraigned and be able to make a plea. And you expect to be able to argue that you can be released until a court date. These people do not have this, that protection. And one of the big things is due process is due everyone, not just American citizens.
Yep. And one problem that I really have, and I'm so tired of hearing Chrissy Nome and whoever else says it. Oh, we never, there's a legitimate process and people can come here legitimately. Many people now who are being arrested are going to their green card appointments, including their last interviews before they get their green cards, and they are going about their immigration in the legal, correct manner. And they go to their interviews and they never even make it into the interview, or they are confiscated and abducted on the way out. So people don't want to go to their interviews anymore. Well, yeah, of course they wouldn't. So you can't, I mean, to say, well, you have to pursue the legal way and this and that. No, because that's not even being permitted. So there's no cogent, logical argument here. I don't even want to call it an administration. As you just said, Mark. I mean, there's nothing, just you're guilty. And that's it.
You mentioned the fact that there are people who are getting arrested when they show up for their hearings, including their final hearings, or being pulled out of the line and told that they can't take their citizenship test. And the courts just recently, one of a federal judge whose name I should get, actually stopped unaccompanied minors who are aging out. Okay, so these are people who came to this country as unaccompanied minors when there was a big bulge in the number of unaccompanied minors who thought that if they showed up, they would get, fair treatment. Instead, they were taken into federal custody. They were placed in foster homes or with relatives or other guardians, and they're required to show up for regular meetings with the Border Patrol or with the Homeland Security. And when they show up to these hearings and they're 18, they become low-hanging fruit. The ICE agents are very, very nice to them. They have a nice casual interview. And then at the very end of it, they say, I'm really sorry. Now that the interview is over, we have to take you into custody. You can't leave. And you should probably call somebody to pick up your car and drive it home or something like that, because you're not coming back. So these are young people, 18 years old, teenagers, children, in my mind, who are being picked out. Obviously, the government knows exactly how old they are. They know they've done all the vetting. They know who they are. They know where they are, and they're tricking them into coming to an ICE facility for what seems like an ordinary check-in. And then they're arrested and thrown into the brig with other people, older people, because now they are no longer children, considered children by the law. So, I mean, it's just like the subterfuge, the sort of like play acting aspect of this continues to strike me about this administration. There's a sense of unreality that seems to accompany almost everything that they do. Nothing is real. Everything is like play acting or somehow costume drama or something like that. There's always some kind of angle going on. And it's forever disgusting. And, but, we need to look, there's so much going on. It's so hard to focus on one thing at a time, because you've got to focus on so many different things. But this is a really easy one. If Congress could show up at these facilities and just let them know that they're being watched, if nothing else, like there are people who are looking after these kids and these people who are human beings being mistreated by these guards who have dehumanized them by calling them illegals and stuff like that, rather than thinking of them as being people. And again, it's real Nazi stuff. It's the kind of stuff that Professor Snyder would talk about as one of the warning signs that, we're really losing our way as a democracy and headed towards an authoritarian type of government.
Scott brings up a great point. There's so much information out there. That's why I really wanted to put this out, because Michael did direct us to this. And again, this would have flown under our radar.
Absolutely.
It would have totally flown under our radar. So, it is important to inform people. And, part of Michael's email basically said he hoped that the people, citizens of his community, would see this and would understand what is going on, because there's so much that is going on today in this country that even those that try to keep up, and I will say that the three of us do try to keep up with what's going on in the country, but it's so much. And I think we've talked about this before, that's part of the strategy. So much chaos that you cannot, focus in on some of the really dangerous things that are happening. And it basically goes under the radar. And so, Michael, thank you very, very much for this article. We definitely do appreciate it. Yes. ICE is acting, and again, you're going to have people, I'm going to tell you that right now, you're going to have people that are going to read this and going to say, oh, it's fake news.
Mm-hmm.
This is a hoax. I'm sorry. No, it's not. This is not a hoax. This is the ACLU. I know I'm a member of the ACLU, and I encourage everybody to become a member. $10 a month. They protect civil liberties, and this is a very disturbing piece of a document. And so, if you're going to read it, make sure you're ready, because this is Americans doing this. And if it was some other country doing it, we would be absolutely condemning the actions that are happening here, and maybe it's time we condemned ourselves for what's going on. So, Michael, thank you very, very much for this. One of the things that I took out of this was, as a member of the ACLU, they asked how we can get involved. I'm going to see if we could reach out to the ACLU, see if we can get a representative to come on and discuss not only this report, but any other reports that we're probably going to dedicate an entire week or two to discussing this with somebody, hopefully from the ACLU. We'll see if they'll reach back out to us, because I think it would be very interesting, not only to our listeners, but to anybody, to see exactly the thing we got to remember is the ACLU has the resources. Resources are important for uncovering the truth, especially in today's society. In 2026, we'll be introducing the Nova Society Side Project Podcast, a space where ideas meet action and voices spark change. This will be a guest-driven show built around conversations that matter most to our listeners. Each episode, we invite inspiring guests to share their perspectives on the social topics shaping our communities, from equity and innovation to culture, sustainability, and beyond. Together, we'll explore side projects that aren't just passion-driven, but purpose-driven, offering fresh insights and practical takeaways for anyone looking to make a difference. We'll be thrilled to have you join us on this journey. The Nova Society Side Project Podcast will begin airing in January 2026, and we hope that you will join us. And that's all the time we have for today's episode. The Nova Society is a production of Nova Society Media, a division of the Phoenix Research Institute. We want to thank our production partners, Buzzsprout, who hosts the Nova Society, Audacity, our editing team, Apple Podcasts, the largest source of podcast and music online, Spotify, the most popular platform for the Nova Society, and iHeartRadio, your destination for all things music and podcasting. The Nova Society is available on all of these and other quality platforms listed in our description. And most importantly, we want to thank you, our listeners. Without your support, the Nova Society could not be possible. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing on the platform of your choice. It's easy, it's free, and helps our channel grow. For questions or comments, you can reach us at nova.society.podcast@gmail.com. So on behalf of Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, Dr. Scott Gershworth, and all of our production partners here at the Nova Society, I'm Dr. Mark Bound. Remember, the true power of society is knowledge. Thank you for listening, and we hope to see you again next time. We'd like to thank our sponsor for this episode, the Phoenix Research Group, an independent research consortium dedicated to providing solutions to social and political issues for NGOs and international government agencies. Through multidisciplinary, nonpartisan, and unbiased research, the Phoenix Research Group advances understanding and practical strategies for complex challenges. The Phoenix Research Group is a division of the Phoenix Research Institute, the producer of the Nova Society podcast.